This is Big Tasty Sports. Merry Christmas, everyone. It's me, Santa. Oh, just kidding. It's still me. I know that was stupid, but hey, sometimes you got to do something stupid just to have a little fun. After all, it is the holidays. So, and you know, the best bets haven't necessarily been going the best overall for the show. So why not hold up a ceramic face of Santa and pretend you're him? All right. Sometimes I just like to be a little bit of a dork, and you got a little bit of that. But I hope you're having a good holiday season so far, that you are getting some time with family, that you're getting some time to relax. I know that many of us are in the midst of some pretty severe cold weather. We were supposedly going to get 6 inches of snow, and I think that we got at least 1/6 of an inch of snow, but it is minus 10 degrees outside or something. So if you are fighting through those cold temperatures, all the best to you. Talk about this a little bit today, but it's hard for me to imagine going outside and playing a football game right now, but there are a few teams who are going to have to attempt to do just that in weather like this. I think that could have a pretty significant effect on the games, because not only is it cold, but it is incredibly windy. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Going to come up in a few of the picks. This show's going to look a little bit different just because a couple of the guys, you know, schedules are all wacky. So can't get everybody on here. Don't have picks from everybody. So basically, here's what this show is going to be. In a second here, I'm going to share D Nice's picks with you. He sent those over to me. Then I have a little bit of a longer conversation with Yanni. We go through his picks and then talk about a few other games as well, give you some ideas on teaser legs that we like. You know, I mean, sometimes teasers are a good play in certain spots. Other times they're fun if you on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day want to throw a few bucks on something just to have some action. That is okay too. You just want to be responsible with that kind of stuff, and you would still like to win, right? Even if that's what you're doing. So we talk about some teaser legs. And at the end, I'm going to share my picks with you and also dive into a little bit more depth on a few games just because we have the time. So that's what the show is going to look like today. Hopefully you are finding some good spots to get in with some action on this NFL weekend and make some money. As always, would appreciate if you would subscribe, hit the like button. Yeah. You can smash it if you want to, or tap it. Either way is fine with me. Certainly the picks have not been strong for the last few weeks. It was 5-10 last week. So again, we have a few weeks to get into the positive for the year on the show. We started strong the first 8 weeks. The last 8 weeks have been pretty trashy. So we will see how it goes at the end here. But hopefully it is enjoyable for you, whether you tail or fade or none of the above. With that said, I told you I would give you D Nice's picks first, so here they are. First up, he has Miami minus 3.5 going against Green Bay minus 107. I'm not going to talk much about this game later, nor do Yanni and I talk much about it. I think what this game comes down to, not to put words in D Nice's mouth, but I think Green Bay is just still not a very good team. I know they got Romeo Doubs back, and that is a positive for them, no doubt. But Green Bay won one game, and now we're acting like they are some kind of contender, that they're going to make the playoffs. I know there's an outside chance of them making the playoffs. Sure, it could happen. But Miami is still explosive. And yes, the weather's going to be a little bit colder for this game, but it's not going to be absolutely frigid. So I think Miami's just the better team here, to be honest. But we'll find out. Second pick. Tennessee minus 1.5 for the first half, minus 110 going against the Texans. Yanni and I do talk about this game some. You're going to hear this pick come up again, or picks in this game come up again. But Tennessee, through much of the year, was a very strong first half team. That has not been as true the last 2 or 3 weeks, but everybody has the hiccups here and there. And so this is one where you follow a trend that's been true most of the season against a team that has not been good in the first half, second half, or much of any other time except for the last 2 weeks. And even that is a little bit skewed, which Yanni and I talk about. So Tennessee minus 1.5, first half, minus 110. And then for D's plus money pick this week, he took Cleveland and New Orleans under 29 at plus 135. I love that D has taken a total that is under 30 as his plus money pick. Seems crazy in the NFL, but again, like I referenced earlier, the weather in Cleveland is supposed to be atrocious. It is supposed to be below zero with winds gusting up to 30 or 40 miles an hour, sustained winds of 15 to 20 miles an hour. If that materializes, it's hard to throw the ball in those kind of winds anyway. We saw a game with high winds on Thursday night between Jacksonville and the Jets. And there was some passing that worked in that game, but it was definitely a struggle. Well, and most of the struggle on the Jets side was Zach Wilson. That's a story for another day. But now you add in that kind of cold. It's not just freezing, 30 degrees or something, but it's going to be wind chills that feel like -20, -30. Man, it's going to be rough. So I love the under 29. Honestly, I wouldn't even hate a poke at like an under 26. I'm not saying I'll do it, and I'm not advising that you do it, but I'm just saying, Yanni says this, I think, when we touch on this game. Could be one of those first team to 10 wins kind of games. So under 29 at plus money, not a terrible look in my opinion. All right, those are D's picks. Next up, we talk to Yanni. It is almost Christmas, but Yanni is still jumping on to talk some football. Merry Christmas, Yanni. How's it going?
Merry Christmas to you and yours. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I got a couple vacation days here to wrap presents and get ready for a road trip and, have some football to watch in the car. So that always works out okay.
Get out of that cold for a little bit. Get some sunshine.
For real, man. We are. We're going south, looking for some sun and something warmer than -20 in the temperature department. So should be good.
I hear you. We're dealing with that here. We're up in Ohio, so we're getting that for a couple days, but then we head back home. So I hear you.
That's right. We'll be headed south together. Separately but together. So, all right, man. Well, hey, let's jump into this. It's kind of an interesting week just because we have all these Saturday games for Christmas Eve and then a few games on Christmas Day. So why don't we just go ahead and jump in with your first pick?
All right, so you're gonna think I stole this from you, and I didn't. I think I mentioned last night that one of my buddies and I were talking about this, but the more I went in, I really like the Tennessee Titans this week. There's a couple things here. I just think they're gonna run roughshod over them on the ground. I think Derrick Henry, this is a 200-yard, 2-touchdown game for him. I think their defense is finally as healthy as it's been. I heard him talking on the broadcast last week that last week was like, I think they played 9% of the snaps with Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, and Kevin Byard all on the field at the same time. And they'll have all three here. So, defensively, I think they're getting healthy. I think right now the sentiment is that the Texans are, hey, they're feisty, they're playing pretty well. And obviously, they almost knocked off the Chiefs. You got to give them credit for that. But when you really dig into the box score and you start looking, that game really had no business being that close. Offensively, the Texans didn't do much. They're still missing some key players there. I just think the Titans will shut them down. I think they're going to run on them. So, at home, laying a field goal, to me, it just makes sense. I think that even without Ryan Tannehill, if anything, it forces them to maybe run even more, which against this Texans team is a good thing. So I'm going to lay the points -3. I'll take Tennessee at home.
Yeah, man, I'll probably repeat this when I do my picks, but I'm definitely on this one as well. I said last night, I love this pick. To your point about the game being close with the Chiefs, but feeling like it shouldn't have been, you go look at that box score, 502 yards to 219.
Right.
313 passing to 125. 6.6 yards a play to 3.8. They almost doubled them up. So it just was a crazy outcome to have that game go to overtime. It looks like from the box score, a game you'd expect to be 35-10 or something,
Yeah, for sure. I think we mentioned a couple of those uncharacteristic interceptions from Mahomes, but you take those out and that game's probably a blowout. And it wasn't. Again, kudos to them. They almost pulled it off, but wasn't that close. I just think this is a good spot for Tennessee. They're due to obviously get back on track. I think overall they're still a better team. And I don't think in this game the loss of Tannehill hurts them. Now, the rest of the season probably, but in this game, I don't think so.
Yeah, I really am down on Tennessee in terms of making any noise long term in the playoffs or anything, but I agree with you for this week for sure. I see that this is actually, I took this at minus 120. It's down to minus 107 at PointsBet for -3 now. So getting a pretty good price too.
Yeah,
So,
I was actually surprised. I guess obviously people are factoring in Tannehill, but I mean it's minus 110, I think, or last time I checked on Bovada. So
yeah,
yeah.
good stuff. What's the confidence level for that one?
I, I'm going to give it a 3. We'll see. I
Yeah,
don't think I've hit my 3 confidence levels here the last couple weeks, but I mean I like it, so we'll give it a go.
I'll be giving it a 3 as well. So it's a 6 between the two of us.
There you
So,
go. There you
um,
go.
all right, what's pick number 2?
So since I've actually hit a couple of these the last couple of weeks, I'm gonna go with another 2-team 6-point teaser here, and I'm gonna take the 49ers for leg 1 against Washington there. And this one is gonna seem unorthodox, and I think people are probably gonna shake their head a little bit at this, but I'm gonna take Tampa on the other one. Also minus, well, I guess minus 1.5. I think they're minus 7.5 right now. So when I look at these games, I'm looking at who's gonna win, who can't lose. And look, if we start with that San Francisco game, Washington is a good football team. Not great, but they're a good football team. They're solid on defense. They've got some weapons on offense. But I just think I look at this game and I don't think Washington's going to be able to run the ball at all. Nobody has been able to run on San Francisco to this point. That puts a lot of pressure on Heineke in this game. And, against the way that 49ers defense is playing, I don't see it. Flip it over, Brock Purdy. There's been basically no drop off between Garoppolo and Purdy to this point anyways. So assuming that continues, which I think it can, I just don't see him losing this game. Is it possible? Sure, anything's possible, but in essence, just needing him to win, I like it. And then same thing in the other game. And I'll be the first to say that Tampa is not a good football team. I think we've come to the agreement over the last 6-7 weeks that this is just not a very good team. But when I look at that Cardinals team and you look at how different they looked when Colt McCoy was not in the lineup there, and Trace McSorley, good dude, whatever. I just don't see them winning that game. They have no home field advantage. They've actually been worse at home than on the road. So we're not looking and saying, oh, it's at home. I just don't see it. I mean, Brady losing to Trace McSorley in that game, different situation than when he lost to Brock Purdy, right? He's playing that San Francisco offense and defense. Arizona's not in that same boat. Could it be close? Probably. In honesty, I would lean towards taking the points with Arizona if we were playing against the spread. But I think Tampa Bay gets this done, probably wins this game by a field goal or so. They kind of keep their, I guess you want to call it, stranglehold lead in the NFC South.
Yeah, man, they're stranglehold at 7 and 8 if they win this game.
Right.
I have to bring to the table for sure my, at this point, just blind hatred for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this team is terrible, but I say that because I think you're right. Like the Cardinals and Trace McSorley and the times that he's gotten in, I mean, we often see these backup quarterbacks come in and perform well for a half or even a game. And it's sort of like once you get past that, you find out that's where Brock Purdy's been kind of impressive because he's done it for a few weeks now. Trace McSorley hasn't even done that. Like when he's gotten in this year, he's thrown interceptions. I think 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. I mean, there's just nothing positive to look at with Trace McSorley. So I have to say that you're right. I do think this is a game where potentially you could almost like tease both ways because I'm not sure how much Tampa Bay can score. The Cardinals defense has been decent, but I feel like they give a good effort for a half. And then they're like, screw it. We're not going to get any help. And then they just give up points after that. So
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. But I think you're right. You could tease it either way. Because, again, I think Tampa wins this game in a kind of one-score fashion. So, realistically, you could make an argument to tease it either way.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have to agree that as bad as Tampa has been, they're, especially with the quarterback situation, they're just better than Arizona, who is a pretty terrible team. Especially with Trace McSorley. So,
right.
What's the confidence level for that one?
I've been rolling with 2 on the teasers, and I'll stick with that there. So
superstitious. It's like wearing the same socks. You got to do it again.
Man. That's it. Until it loses, we're going to keep rolling that way.
I love it. All right, that leaves us with the plus money on the docket. What are we doing this week?
Well, so I'll tell you what, if we're if we weren't in a contest here, I will tell you that I would have two potential picks here. One would be the Eagles money line. I think they have a very legitimate chance to still beat the Cowboys in this game, even with Gardner Minshew. But I'm not going to do that. I don't think the return on investment is enough there. And then the other is I like taking a swing here with the Colts against the Chargers on the money line, just because the Chargers kind of play to the level of their competition. And Nick Foles, I mean, he's shown that he can come in and light things up. So, but again, heck, we saw it with your Vikings last week. I can't trust this Colts team to close out and win a game. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little crazy like I did last week, because I want to make up some ground here in the contest here. So I'm going to do something that I do not recommend doing, but I'm going to do it and hope that it wins. And I will say, when I did that last week, it should have come through. It did not, which is all that matters. But at the end of the day, it should have. So I'm going to give this one a shot again here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 5-team 8-point
team. This is what I like to see.
Well, and look, again, this is not, please, if you're listening, do not do this. This is not a way to be profitable in sports betting, but I'm trying to make up some ground in a contest, and this is a way to get plus 225. So, for me, that's really what I'm looking at here is trying to get bang for my buck here. Do I expect this to come through? No, but at plus 225, I'm going to take a swing. So what I've got is I've got the Chiefs teased down to -2. Obviously, they're at home against Seattle. Might be a close game, but yeah, I think they can win by a field goal here. I went with my Bills. That turns that game into a pick. I know weather's a factor there. That could end up being a close game, but the Bears are banged up. Obviously, their defense is not good. I think the Bills should be able to come away with a win, even if it's close. I went through with San Francisco again to +1. Obviously, kind of, again, making it to a pick there. I don't see them losing that game. And then I actually did two totals, another no here, but I'm going to go with it here. I teased the Saints and Browns to under 40. We've all heard about the potential weather there, the 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts and all those things we're going to have there. I just don't, honestly, I don't think this game gets over 30. So, getting to 40 there, I like that. And then same thing, I teased under in the Rams and Broncos under 44.5. And again, I lean under on that game to begin with. The Broncos have been an under team all season. The Rams, obviously, with their injuries on offense, they have nobody left, Baker Mayfield and nobody out there. So, I don't think they get there either. So again, this is not something I would recommend to anybody in any way, shape, or form to tail, but I am doing this because I want to win this contest. I like the plus 225 potential return. That's where I'm at.
I'm with you, man. The plus money plays, Philly's on my list, money line, because it's up to plus 215 now. So that's not too bad.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, looking for that plus 200 or better for the sake of this show. So
there you go.
You and I talked about this a while back, but I want to bring up this issue of teasing totals again for a minute. So I know that is looked down upon, and you can get kicked out of sports gambling forever for teasing totals. And I guess I kind of get it most of the time. Like, that's sort of a more volatile thing. But for this week in particular, I've been thinking about this a lot the last 2 days, because I've been thinking about seriously pulling the total on a teaser with some of these the trigger. There we go. There's too many T words, Yanni. But I think this week, because of the weather conditions and some of these teams that are involved, I just feel way more confident about the totals than I do the sides. It's like, who's going to win with New Orleans and Cleveland? I don't know, but they're not going to score much. Who's going to win with the Rams and Denver? I don't know, but they're not going to score much. I feel similarly with the Bills and the Bears, though I do feel better about the Bills winning. I'm with you. Like, the gap there is just too big. But at the same time, in those conditions, with especially a Bears team that can't throw the ball already, like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in that game either. So in numerous games this week only, I feel more confident with a higher total than I do about getting a wider spread.
No, I agree with you. And again, it all just depends on if you are truly a buy the book better, right? I mean, if you're a buy the book better, you're never going to do that. But I'm not, and I never have been. And, I look for certain situations like that. I think the biggest thing for me when you look at some of these totals is we talk a lot about, closing line value here. And obviously some of those totals opened up substantially higher. Right. So in theory, we're playing a bad number if you want to look at it that way. But did they adjust enough? I mean, literally when you talk about that Browns and Saints game, I mean, if what happens with the weather is what they're predicting, they may not get to 14 total points in that game. I mean, honestly, it could be handoff. And, unless Nick Chubb or somebody can just, run over the opponent here, who knows? I mean, we saw what happened last year when the Bills and Patriots played on Monday night, and it was literally like first 1 to 10 points, right? You got that. And I think we're going to see some of that this week. I mean, these are really historically low temperatures and wind that we're seeing at these games this week.
Yeah. Well, in that game in particular, I would take under 38.5 if the weather was good between those two teams.
I think that's it too, is, you're looking at a couple of these games and you're saying I'd lean under anyhow. And then you factor in the weather and it's like, it's almost a no brainer. And if you're getting an extra 8 points or 6 or 10 or whatever you're trying to tease to, again, I'm not a traditional bettor when it comes to that. So I have no problem on a week like this, maybe looking at it a different way. Cause I think you and I have talked about this a lot. The books are too darn locked in on these sides at this point. And it's hard to find an edge unless you have great CLV early in the week or, on a look ahead line or something like that. Otherwise, I think you've got to try to find other angles. And I think this week it's like the weather is truly the other angle.
Yep. Love it. So I'm assuming that's going to be a confidence level 1. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that.
You got it, man. Do not try this at home.
Nailed it. All right. Hey, so like I had told you before the show, a couple guys probably aren't going to be able to jump on with Christmas week and stuff. So if you're up for it, let's take just a few more minutes. And especially for recreational bettors, it can be fun to just have some action as you go through the day, kind of through the weekend. And we've got games really spread out. So I'm going to just take it like a time segment at a time and just kind of mention if there are any teaser legs or spots that we really like. So that first window is the fullest one on the 24th. That 1 o'clock window, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. And you already mentioned Kansas City teasing them down, which I love. You already mentioned the let's see. Actually, that might have been the only. Oh, and then the total in the Saints and Browns. Anything else in that early window that even if you maybe aren't betting it, just things that you would lean toward liking straight up or as a teaser?
Well, again, I think if you're just kind of doing it recreationally here, you could look at doing an 8-point teaser with, for example, Kansas City. You could look at the Bills there. There's a couple teams you could potentially look at teasing up, getting the Panthers at plus 11 maybe at home against the Lions. I think that's
Love
something
that
you could look at. Obviously, you mentioned the total in that Browns and Saints. I mean, I think if you add an extra 8 points on there, you can look at that. And again, I mean, I can't say it enough. These aren't necessarily recommended wagers, but if you're looking to put a little bit of lunch money down and have a little fun, you're hanging out with family and you want to have a little sweat going, a little action, I think that's something you can look at in the early window. The other interesting game, and I'm actually curious, I'm going to ask your thoughts, is what do you think about your Vikings and the Giants there? Minnesota's -4 right now. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And I only ask because I don't have strong conviction either way. I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah, man, it's an interesting one. And I've said plenty about the Vikings in the last couple weeks and stuff, but the Vikings, I think, are a hard team because to me, they're just really volatile. Like, I think they have the ability to beat good teams even on their best days. And then they have the ability. I mean, the Colts game was a microcosm of this. They got down 33 to one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, and then they came back and beat that team from that deficit in the second half. It's just like, who in the hell are these guys, So I think in this game, I do think the thing that is beneficial to the Vikings here is that the Giants are so limited offensively right now. So I think if Ed Donatel, I don't trust him, so who knows what he's going to do. But if you can key in on taking Saquon away, Daniel Jones can run a little bit. I'm not saying he wouldn't get any first downs. He can find a couple receivers, but I just don't see them putting up the, 27, 30, 35 points if they can take Barkley away. And I just think Thibodeau's been great for the Giants. I think their defense is like on the come up a little bit, but I just think over the course of a whole game in Minnesota, I just think Minnesota is going to get that spurt that gets them to that 28-ish points And so if I had to take this game, I would take Minnesota and lay the points. But Minnesota's just a team that I don't want to bet very much because I think they're so volatile.
I mean, that if I had to break it down, I probably would have been similar there. And I lean laying the points here as well. But, as you've seen, the Vikings are a win by 3 type of team, right?
Yep.
So you get that.
What they do.
Yeah. And you look at a team like the Giants that realistically probably should have lost substantially more games than they've lost up to this point, and somehow they find ways to be in games and win games. So, I hear you. I really just wanted to get your take on that to see if I was kind of on the same wavelength, which it sounds like we're on the same page there.
Yeah, for sure. What about in that? So there's a lot of legs there. What about in that late window? I know you already talked about the Washington, San Francisco. I totally agree. I don't think Washington is a very good team. I think Heineke is a little turnover prone, and the Niners have a defense that could take advantage of that. But what about this Philly Dallas game? The line's at 5.5 right now. We've seen some 6 in the market. There might be some places that have 6. Any thoughts? And maybe what would be your confidence level of using this game either straight or in a teaser?
So I think you got a few options here. I mean, again, if we're talking recreationally speaking here, I think you could potentially play with that Philadelphia money line. Again, do they go in and win this game? Probably not. But I think when you look at that plus 200 or greater ROI there, I mean, I think you could make a case for doing that. I mean, we know Gardner Minshew is a very capable quarterback. I mean, he's played well every time he's been given the keys to the car. So I think you could say that Minshew, I don't know how much of a fall off there's going to be there. I realize Hurts was playing at an MVP level. I realize Minshew can't run quite as well as Hurts can. But I think if the Eagles game plan this right and they lean on Miles Sanders, and if their defense can make plays, I think they have a chance. And I think all the pressure in the world is on Dallas here, and not necessarily because they need to win, but I think they need to win psychologically. And what I mean is, if you're going into the playoffs, if the Eagles beat you in your house with a backup quarterback, you're going to go into the playoffs thinking there's no way we can beat this team, right? We have to go to their house. They're going to have their starting quarterback back. So I feel like there's some pressure there. I think the Eagles are going to kind of just cut it loose, do what they do. If they win, they win. If they don't, they don't. That's why I think the money line is definitely in play here. I like the points, although we're really only getting over the key number of 3. So, if you're at 5.5 or 6, I mean, you're not necessarily getting a ton of value. But I definitely, if you're asking me to bet the game, I'm taking the points with the Eagles here for sure. And then if you're looking at doing like a teaser for that afternoon leg there, I'm teasing the Eagles up. I'm going to 11.5 or whatever there, because again, I fail to see them getting blown out. And I know Dallas at times, I mean, we think back to that Indianapolis game where all of a sudden they threw 30 points up in a quarter and it was like, whoa. But
Minnesota too, right?
Right.
Rolled them.
Right. I just don't see that. I think the Eagles defense is good enough. I think this is a divisional game. I mean, if you're getting 11.5 or 12 points here, that to me, again, Eagles teased up, Eagles against the spread, Eagles money line. That's the side that I'm on completely in this game. And yeah, Dallas could win by 21. Absolutely. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. So what I'm wrestling with is even non-recreationally, plus 215 is a 31% chance of winning. Do I think that the Eagles with Gardner Minshew and all the talent they have on that team, getting Dallas Goedert back, that they win in Dallas more than 3 times out of 10? And I would just say, I think so. To me, I think it's somewhere close to a coin flip. I definitely see times where Dallas is going to win this game without a doubt, but I think it's in the neighborhood of 50-50, maybe 45-55. So to me, I actually do think there might be some value there on that money line.
No, I definitely
take it with that context.
I definitely think there's value on that money line. I mean, obviously, if you're betting, an underdog like that, you're going in with the assumption that, hey, there's a good chance this isn't going to hit, right? Like you're going in.
Yep.
As long as you're going in kind of and you've evaluated it the way that you have, which is, hey, this is basically saying 3 out of 10 times they win, and you're saying I think 4 or 5 times out of 10 they win. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason at that point that you wouldn't pull the trigger on the money line. And I'm with you. I mean, when you break it down like that, I think they win that game 4 out of 10 times, right? So, looking at it that way, you do have some good value on the back end there.
Yep, agreed. All right, I'm going to throw one last game that you already mentioned, but I think it's an interesting one, both straight up and from a teaser angle. And that's going all the way to Monday night, where the Chargers go to the Colts, who are now turning to Nick Foles. but the Colts are at +4.5 at home against a team that just beat a beat up Tennessee team by 3 at home. And I know we can't put too much into just one single game, but the Titans last week, without some of these guys that they're getting back fully on defense against the Colts, I'm not sure what would happen in that game. So how strongly do you feel about the Colts having a chance to cover this number here?
I think they have a really good chance to cover this number. And I don't like getting, kind of like what you were talking with the Vikings. I don't like getting involved with the Chargers often because they're also a little volatile. I mean, you see them one week put up 35 points and their offense looks unstoppable. And then you see them next week against Tennessee. And it's like, why can't these guys move the ball? So they're a little bit of I think they're one of the tougher teams to handicap in that sense. The other thing is, how we don't know from Nick Foles what we're going to get, right? I mean, I think at least with Matt Ryan, we kind of know what we're going to get. And I'm not saying that it's great football per se, but at least you kind of know. I mean, Foles could be very hot or very cold. He could be coming in, and we've seen Nick Foles look as good as any quarterback in the history of the league. And then we've also seen him look like he shouldn't be on an NFL roster. So, there's such volatility with the quarterback position there that concerns me a little bit. But I look at the Colts defense, which I think is solid, despite what they gave up in the second half to the Vikings there.
Right.
I think overall that defense is a solid defense that can at least somewhat match up with that Chargers offense there. And then you flip the ball over. I'm not a big fan of that Chargers defense. And again, we've talked about this before, the loss of Bosa and some of those guys is big. But I don't think they're great. Obviously the Colts, they don't have Jonathan Taylor, which I think hurts them because, they're not necessarily an explosive throwing team. But if you ask me, I would take the points here with the Colts. I think, to me, kind of like we were just saying with the Vikings, the Chargers are kind of a play to their competition type team. And, these are the kind of games to me that they win close, right? It's a field goal late or, something like that. So if I'm getting over a field goal, if you're asking me, I'm taking the Colts in this game. And I will say I'm not betting it because I don't have enough confidence in the Colts, but if I had to, I'm definitely taking the points in this game.
Yeah, I'm for sure with you. And I was just sitting here thinking, would I want to include this in a teaser, teasing the Colts up through 10, you get to 10.5. But even there, I actually think I'd almost rather just play the 4.5 because I think the Chargers can blow them out, right?
Absolutely.
And so I don't want to tie other things to that.
This game to me is one of those prototypical games where it's either going to be super close, Chargers win by field goal, or maybe even Colts win by field goal, whatever, or the Chargers end up winning 38-13, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So I'm with you on that. I would not want to tease Indy here. I just don't see the point in that. I think that it's either going to be really close or it's not. So, getting that extra 6 doesn't mean much to me here. I'd rather take a chance at +4 if I were wagering this.
Totally agree. And that's why it's good to talk through this stuff because I think on face value, people could think, well, if you like a certain line, then you must like it teased up or down. It's like, no, not necessarily. That's a game by game thing. So
for sure. Not always.
Yeah. Well, Yanni, appreciate you jumping on this holiday week. Hope that you and your family have a wonderful holiday, and we will reconvene afterwards.
You too, man. Merry Christmas. I hope you guys have safe travels and enjoy that trip.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care.
Time for me to give you my picks. I'm going to do the picks first, and then I'm also going to be going through a couple of the other games just to share a little bit of information on those. I think mostly games that I have bet already, or else it's ones that I am strongly considering. And as always, I will let you know that. Never trying to tell you that I'm betting something that I'm not. So let's jump into the picks. First up is Tennessee -3 at -107. I will take that for a 3 confidence. Talk to Yanni about this one. End of the day, I just think Tennessee can run all over them. They're getting a little bit healthier on defense, which against a bad Texans team, I think is enough. This is a buy low spot on the Titans and a sell high spot on the Texans. All of this stuff is in play. And I actually think that Tennessee wins this game by a touchdown or more. I could even see it getting away from them where it's a 20-point game. And I'm actually thinking about a small amount on an alternate total there because I just think that this has all the factors or almost all the factors in play that I like in a side that I'm going to bet. This is one of my strongest plays in a while. hey, maybe I'll come out looking stupid. I've made plenty of bad plays lately. I mean, I've been treading water for the most part the last few weeks. But this is a strong play for me. And lots has been said on this show. If you didn't hear that, you can go back and listen to it when I talk to Yanni. So that's Tennessee -3, confidence level 3 on that one. The second one, I'm going to do something that you're never supposed to do. And Yanni and I talked about this a little bit, but honestly, I just like it. And I think it's a strong spot. So if you think I'm a freaking idiot for doing a teaser on totals, you might want to skip ahead. Definitely don't tail this, but I'm going to take a 3-game teaser on unders at +100. This is on FanDuel, and it's an 8-point teaser. So first of all, I'm going to take Buffalo and Chicago from 40.5 up to 48.5. Yes, Chicago's offense has looked okay. Yes, Buffalo can have a good offense, but honestly, Buffalo's offense has not looked outstanding, and the Bears' defense is not phenomenal. But this is one of those games where they are going to have terrible weather conditions to contend with. The cold and the wind, those are the two factors for me. Below zero temperatures and wind, again, sustained over 15 miles an hour, up to 30 or 40. Chicago struggles to throw the ball in the first place. If Buffalo knows all they really have to do is defend Justin Fields, I think that they'll be able to do that adequately in this game. Even if Chicago puts up a few points, I actually don't see them getting over, 10 to 14 points. So Buffalo, I think, wins this game, but I think it just looks like a, 20 to 13 kind of game or something at best. It might even be lower scoring than that. So under 48.5, I love it. Second is New Orleans and Cleveland going from 32.5 to 40.5. So under 40.5 in that one. Talked about this one quite a bit already. This game might be lucky to get to 30, might be lucky to get to 20. So under 40.5, I will absolutely take. And then the last one is Baltimore and Atlanta going from under 35.5 to under 43.5. This one is not so much a play on the weather, as the weather should be okay in Baltimore, I believe, for this game. Certainly temperature-wise. Winds may be a little bit more of a question, but should be all right. What this one comes down to is that Atlanta's offense just isn't very good. They continue to have to try to run the ball, which they can't always do incredibly effectively. And now they're going up against what has been one of the best defenses in the league over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I don't think Baltimore is going to give up much of anything to Atlanta. I actually thought about betting the Atlanta spread in this game for a reason that I'll get to in a minute. The thing that keeps me off of it is I just don't know how much they can score. I don't know if they do more than 10 points in this game. And so instead of betting on Atlanta, when I'm not sure what they can do on that side of the ball, I just figure they can contribute to an under in this game pretty well. On the other side with Baltimore, Lamar Jackson's still going to be out, is what it looks like. Tyler Huntley is hurt, and he is questionable. He may play, and I think he could have a good game here and there, but he's really had one good game in his entire NFL career, and the rest have been pretty crappy. Now, Atlanta's defense is not anything amazing, but at times this season, they've been able to be adequate. And against a guy who struggles to throw the ball and doesn't run it as well as Lamar, yes, there may be some points given up here, but again, I don't expect Baltimore to score a ton of points. So let's say Baltimore scores 20 points and they win this game even 20-10 or something. That would be a good win for Baltimore in this case. We're still going well under 43.5. I like this game to go under 35.5. In fact, I made a play on that straight. But I also just put in this teaser a little bit of extra insurance, and I like all of these games to go under. So that is an 8-point teaser. I took that on FanDuel for Buffalo, Chicago, New Orleans, Cleveland, Baltimore, Atlanta. Because it is a 3-game teaser, I will only give it a confidence level of 2, but it's +100. My last play is a play on two plays that I actually do like in this week. However, I wouldn't be parlaying them together if it wasn't for the competition. So listen to what I have to say. And then if anything, I would say maybe if you like it, make a play on these games individually. I don't strongly encourage you to parlay these. I did put a half a unit on the parlay. I like to try to bet the things that I'm giving out on this show. And so that's not something that I do frequently, but I really do think both of these are decent value in terms of the spot. And so, hey, I'm going to throw them together. It gets me to +547 on this pick. And when I'm trying to win a competition with a couple other guys still in the running, sometimes you got to get a little crazy. So that's what I'm doing here. All right, first up is a game that we've talked about a lot, and Yanni and I talked about a lot, and that's the Philadelphia money line. By the time I actually got this bet in, the number on them was down to plus 185. Obviously, I would prefer if you got like the plus 215 that was available last night when I talked to Yanni, but plus 185 now. I still like it. Again, this game to me is something close to a coin flip. I think it says a lot that when Hurts got ruled out, this game went up to plus 6 and now it's back down to plus 4. It says to me there's probably sharp money coming in on the Eagles at that plus 6. Now, maybe it wouldn't come in at plus 4. I'm not saying that the money line is the sharpest play, but I absolutely think it's live here, and I think that line is a good one. The second leg of this parlay is one that Yanni and I touched on, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. This is actually one of the games I was going to go more in depth on, so I'll just do that now as a part of this play. And that's the Carolina Panthers money line at plus, I think it's plus 127. This was on WinBet that I got these two lines. Together, these come out to plus 547. But let's talk a little bit more about Carolina and Detroit. The first thing I want to look at is points per play allowed. So for Carolina, they're 14th on the season with 0.345 points allowed, points per play allowed. But when you break this down a little bit further, and this one might be a little bit more consistent because their defense has had more consistency than the offense. At home, they're only allowing 0.298 points per play, which is 7th in the league. So they have been really strong defensively. And I get this is only one metric. Go look at a bunch of other defensive metrics if you want. And I'd encourage you to even do that. But I'm just using this one as an example. While away from home, they've allowed 0.407. So this is one of the things I like to look at this point in the season is where are their statistical categories where that home-away split is wide. And for Carolina's defense, it's really wide. They've been really good at home and not so good away from home. Detroit, on the other hand, has allowed 0.403 points per play, which is 29th in the league, but that their defense has been getting better. So that wouldn't really be a fair metric to go by either. In the last 3, they're only allowing 0.303 points per play, which is 10th in the league. So they've been a lot stronger. However, I do want to talk about those games. Now, number one, they held Jacksonville. I think it was 10 points they held them to. That's looking great. Kudos to them. Great defensive performance. I think that one's strong. Then Minnesota was one of those games. Again, they played a good defensive game against Minnesota. Minnesota made some mistakes, had Dalvin Cook drop a fumble in the red zone. That could have made a difference here, and it would have bumped this number up a little bit. But kudos to them again. Solid defensive performance. The other game, though, was on the road at the Jets with Zach Wilson playing quarterback. And I think we saw last night against the Jags, Zach Wilson, at least right now, is just not an NFL quarterback. And that skews this number a little bit because they held them to so few points that it skews the number. So while they are 10th at 0.303 in the last 3, I think that number is better than what they actually are, though their defense is improving, and I definitely want to give that to them. However, I also want to point out that Detroit is giving up 0.391 points per game away from home, which is 27th in the league. And this speaks again to the fact that Detroit just is not as good away from home as they are at home. They played a good defense in the Jets last week, and so I don't want to take anything away from them offensively, but they did struggle to score, and that was a game that they absolutely could have lost if Zach Wilson or Robert Saleh were competent at their jobs. So I think Detroit is being overvalued. One of the big things for Carolina in this game is going to be the third down conversions. They're bad. 29.17%, which is 30th in the league. In their last 3, it's a little better, but it's still only 33.33. Detroit, on the other hand, is 11th in the league on third down conversion at 42.29. But again, when we look at their games away from home, it drops to 34.21. So it's still slightly better than where Carolina's been the last 3 games, but not a lot better. I think this is going to be something that's important in this game. Is Carolina able to keep their offense on the field, keep that Detroit offense that is playing better off the field a little bit more, and allow their defense to come up with some key stops? So for me, this game is something like a coin flip. If anything, I actually do prefer Carolina here. I think their defense is solid. I think with Sam Darnold, how can you say this, right? But I mean, Sam Darnold to me is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson, and the Jets' offensive weapons are probably a little bit better, but Carolina still has some okay weapons on offense. Detroit's made it hard for teams to run the ball, so Sam Darnold is going to have to throw the ball a little bit, and that can be a tricky proposition. By no means am I saying this is a lock or something. I'm just saying I think Detroit is overvalued. I think this is the spot where they trip up, and I like Carolina here. So my plus money play of the week is Philadelphia and Carolina plus 547, and that will certainly be a level 1 confidence. I wouldn't give a play like that anything but. However, if it comes through, that will be a solid plus money play. As we glance through the rest of the schedule, let me see if there are other games that stick out here. Yanni and I talked some about the Giants and the Vikings, perhaps a tough one to bet. I talked some about Atlanta and Baltimore. I don't hate Atlanta at plus 6.5 there with the way that this game is likely to go down. I really do not mind that at all as a teaser piece too, to take them up, especially if you do a teaser big enough to get them to plus 14. I think that that's pretty solid. We talked about San Francisco. The Christmas Day games are pretty ugly, I will say. I'm with D liking Miami against Green Bay in Miami minus 3.5. Don't hate that. Denver and the Rams is just a tough one because these teams are both so bad. But I think what we've seen from Baker Mayfield over a large sample size now is that he's just not very good. And this Denver defense has been consistently good all the way through the year. So I think what this game comes down to is, do you think that Denver can score enough to cover this line at minus 2.5 or minus 3? I don't feel super confident in them for that, but I don't mind the under here, under 36.5. Denver's been an under team all year. Yes, they've maybe showed a little bit of life, but I just don't think the Rams can accomplish much on offense in this game. And so as long as Denver doesn't score more than 23, 24 points, I think that under looks pretty good. And then Tampa Bay, Arizona, man, that game's gross. Tampa Bay's bad. Arizona's bad. Trace McSorley starting. It's plus 8. If you push me to play anything here, it would be Arizona plus 8, but I will likely not have anything on that game. And then Yanni and I talked a little bit about the Chargers and the Colts as well. Taking the Colts and the points, just really not a bad look there, I don't think. It's not a game I'm on yet, but I'm definitely considering it, and I may be on the Colts by the time we get to Monday night. All right, that is the Best Bets show. Last one of this year. We might have one more before the new year, but certainly the last one before Christmas. Truly, to all of you who have watched, who interact, all that stuff, I wish you nothing but the best. Merry Christmas. Whatever it is that you celebrate, I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you again soon.